Sugar began as a wild plant. It was a tall, thick grass. In the warm, wet lands of New Guinea, people discovered it thousands of years ago. They chewed the stalks for their sweet juice. This was a simple pleasure, a natural candy found in the wild. From these humble beginnings, the plant, called sugarcane, started a long journey. It traveled with sailors and traders. They carried cuttings of the cane across the sea to new islands and new continents. It was a slow process, moving from one community to another. But this grass was special. Its sweetness was a powerful attraction, a taste unlike anything else. The journey of sugarcane eventually led it to India around 500 BC. Here, a major change happened. The people of India figured out a way to turn the sweet juice into something more. They learned to boil the juice down. This process created solid crystals of sugar. This was a revolution. Sugar was no longer just a temporary treat chewed from a stalk. It could be stored. It could be transported easily. The Indians called these crystals khanda, which is where our word candy comes from. They used it as a medicine and as a rare, expensive spice. It was a luxury, a sign of wealth and knowledge. From India, the knowledge of sugar crystallization spread west. Persian traders were fascinated by this new substance. Around the 6th century AD, the Persian Empire embraced sugarcane cultivation. They improved the refining processes, making the sugar purer and whiter. When the Islamic world expanded, it absorbed this knowledge. Arab entrepreneurs became masters of sugar production. They established the first large-scale sugar plantations and refineries across the Middle East, North Africa, and Spain. They treated sugar not just as a spice, but as an ingredient for elaborate desserts, drinks, and artful sculptures made of pure sugar. For centuries, sugar remained a mystery to most of Europe. It was a rare and extremely expensive commodity. Only the wealthiest nobles and kings could afford it. They purchased it in small quantities from Venetian merchants, who controlled the trade routes from the Middle East. It was sold in apothecaries, treated as a powerful medicine to cure all sorts of ailments. It was also a status symbol, used sparingly to sweeten food or to show off immense wealth at banquets. For the average European, sugar was as exotic and unattainable as silk from China or spices from the East Indies. It was a taste of a distant, wealthy world. The Crusades changed everything for Europe's relationship with sugar. European knights and soldiers traveled to the Middle East to fight. There, they encountered sugar on a scale they had never imagined. They saw vast fields of sugarcane. They tasted foods sweetened in ways they had never experienced. They saw how it was a part of daily life for the wealthy in that region. When these crusaders returned home, they brought with them stories and a newfound craving for this incredible sweetness. This created a new, widespread demand across Europe. The desire for sugar was no longer limited to the highest echelons of royalty. This growing demand sparked a desire for control. European powers wanted their own supply of sugar. They did not want to rely on Venetian or Arab traders. The Spanish and Portuguese began to experiment. They tried planting sugarcane in their warmer territories in the Mediterranean, on islands like Sicily, Cyprus, and Madeira. These early plantations were laboratories for a new kind of agriculture. They were large-scale operations focused on a single cash crop. They required immense amounts of labor to plant, harvest, and process the cane. This model, developed in the Mediterranean, would soon be exported to a new world. The age of discovery opened a new chapter for sugar. When Christopher Columbus sailed to the Americas in 1492, he saw the potential immediately. The islands of the Caribbean had the perfect climate for growing sugarcane. The soil was rich, the sun was hot, and there was plenty of rain. On his second voyage, Columbus brought sugarcane cuttings with him. This act would transform the landscape, economy, and population of the Americas forever. The islands that were once home to diverse ecosystems and indigenous cultures would soon be cleared to make way for endless fields of sugarcane. As the Spanish and Portuguese established colonies in the Americas, sugar was central to their plans. They built ingenios, or sugar mills, which were complex industrial sites in the middle of agricultural plantations. These mills required massive capital investment and a huge, constant labor force. At first, they tried to force the native populations to work the fields, but disease and brutal conditions decimated them. The insatiable demand for labor to produce the highly profitable white gold led the colonial powers to look across the Atlantic Ocean to Africa for a new source of workers, setting the stage for a tragic and brutal system. The sugar plantation system in the Americas was unlike any farming seen before. It was a combination of agriculture and industry. Vast tracts of land were dedicated to a single crop. The work was grueling and relentless. It followed a strict year-round schedule, from planting the cane to the violent, frantic pace of the harvest. The cane had to be cut by hand and rushed to the mill within hours, or its sugar content would spoil. This created an immense and constant demand for labor. The work was dangerous, involving sharp machetes under a hot sun and perilous machinery in the mills. This brutal system needed a constant supply of workers to function. To meet this demand, European colonial powers created the Atlantic slave trade. Over centuries, millions of Africans were captured, torn from their homes, and forced onto ships. They endured the horrific Middle Passage across the ocean to be sold into slavery in the Caribbean and Brazil. Their lives were dedicated to producing sugar for European consumers. The profits from sugar-funded empires built cities in Europe and fueled the Industrial Revolution. But this wealth was built on the suffering and exploitation of enslaved people. The sweetness on European tables had a deeply bitter origin, a history of violence and inhumanity. The plantation was a society built on extreme inequality and control. A small number of white owners and overseers held absolute power over a large population of enslaved Africans. The system was maintained through brutal force and the constant threat of violence. Enslaved people resisted in many ways, from slowing down work and breaking tools to escaping and forming their own communities, and even staging large-scale revolts. The history of the sugar colonies is not just a story of production, but also a story of constant struggle, resilience, and the fight for freedom in the face of unimaginable oppression. For a long time, sugar remained a luxury, though it became more accessible to the growing middle class in Europe. It sweetened the new popular drinks of coffee, tea, and chocolate, all of which were also products of colonial expansion. The sugar trade created a complex global economy, connecting continents in a network of exploitation and profit. The immense wealth generated by sugar plantations in places like Barbados, Jamaica, and Saint-Domingue, modern Haiti, made them the most valuable colonies in the world. The fortunes of nations rose and fell based on their control of this single sweet commodity. The world of sugar was dramatically altered by a new discovery in Europe. During the Napoleonic Wars, Britain blockaded France, cutting off its supply of colonial sugar. In response, Napoleon Bonaparte championed a new source of sweetness, the sugar beet. Scientists had discovered that the humble beet root contained sucrose, the same molecule found in sugarcane. Napoleon offered prizes and support for the development of a beet sugar industry. This broke the monopoly of cane sugar. It meant that sugar could now be produced in the temperate climates of Europe and North America, fundamentally changing global trade and agriculture. The rise of beet sugar, combined with more efficient refining technologies in the 19th century, made sugar cheaper than ever before. It began its final transformation from a luxury spice to an everyday food. It was no longer just for the rich. Working-class families could now afford sugar, and it became a staple in their diets, providing cheap calories. Food manufacturers began to add sugar to everything, from bread and canned goods to sauces and cereals. This mass consumption created a new kind of diet, one where hidden sugars were present in almost every processed food item on the shelf. This abundance has led to a major modern debate. In the 21st century, the conversation around sugar has shifted from economics to health. Scientists and public health officials have raised concerns about the links between high sugar consumption and a range of health problems, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. The very substance that was once sold as a medicine is now seen by many as a public health risk. Governments around the world are now grappling with how to address this, considering policies like sugar taxes and stricter labeling regulations to inform consumers about what they are eating. From a wild grass in New Guinea to a global commodity, sugar has left an indelible mark on our world. It redrew maps, built empires, and fueled one of the largest forced migrations in human history. It changed how we farm, what we eat, and how our economies work. The story of sugar is a story of human desire, innovation, and exploitation. It is a reminder that the everyday items on our tables often have long and complicated histories. Sugar is more than just a sweetener. It is a powerful force that has shaped the modern world in both sweet and bitter ways.